The good thing about living in places like Chicago, etc., is
Hmm.
that you can get niche releases like that. Like, I know in New York they did a silent voice release or whatever that was
Hmm.
pretty close to after the movie had came
Really?
out. Yeah, they did an event for it. Like where I live in the South, we'll get, of stuff like Ghibli films and stuff like that. If they get a limited release, they'll play a
Hmm.
Ghibli film, but they won't, if you go to California or New York, they'll play a Nanoha movie or something like that sometimes. Like, I've seen that before, that they played a Nanoha movie on, like, a Fathom Events thing.
Mm.
Um, like they had it on Valentine's Day. But it wasn't in my area because that stuff is too niche. So they need to concentrate it in these big places.
Hmm.
It kind of makes me wish that I lived in a bigger place so I could see stuff like a silent voice. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I think about it and I'm like, wait a minute, people exist. This is not okay. This is not okay.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I would go watch it is because I'm a fucking degenerate, and also I might be able to get people to go with me. So at least then, there's a minute chance that it could be a social event and not just some geeky ass weave shit. Um, there's also a movie playing. Why the fuck is it my theater? Is it just because like the anime community? I don't think the fucking Savoy anime community, the Champagne Savoy area, has such a staunch anime community that Fathom Events will justify having showing anime films here because they're showing A Silent Voice. They're showing I Want to Eat Your Pancreas like next week. And so I'm like,
Holy shit.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That
want to eat your pancreas. What?
Oh no! It seems like degeneracy has finally come to the United States. We need to rally behind Jordan Peterson and George
Yes,
Soros, and we need.
Jordan and fucking Steven Crowder and the entirety of the intellectual dark web. They need to fucking save us from this goddamn otaku degeneracy and bring us into the light that is order to wash away chaos, which is women.
I'd like to tell you about how Nietzsche supported Christianity.
Oh my god. In abstract, of course, it's all metaphors. Um, Obviously, I don't interpret Christianity as literal. That's just silly. No.
Oh no!
Fuck.
This is I'm just imagining this right now. Like Peterson teams up with fucking George Soros to write a
Oh.
book against anime,
Oh
and
my
like
god.
they're trying to restore Western society from this sexual and and religious degeneracy.
Yes.
Oh,
Gotta save us from anime titties, or else what will happen otherwise?
I mean,
People have equal rights? Get the fuck out of here, bitch.
as we all know, by becoming an anime fan, you are far more likely to become transgender, and we cannot have this. Our Western values will not be undermined. We will not submit.
There is a statistical increase, you see, thereby. um, we have to just remove this from society, or else you never know what will happen. These the like we like next thing we'll know, bestiality will become a thing. Do you want that? I don't think so. Therefore, ban all anime.
I'm just gripping my copy of Gorilla Mindset to my chest right now.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Oh, it's funny. We're talking about otaku degeneracy as I'm looking up articles about the top tier quality Japanese 2016 hit anime Keijo, which I don't know if you remember what
I
Keijo
remember.
is.
It's the butt fighting show. Yeah.
Yes, it's the butt fighting show. Very intense. Um,
Incredibly intense. Incredible animation, of course.
Incredible animation. Oh my lord. Like I just see some of these gifs and I'm like, how did they do that? Um, I think it's very interesting. I think I know it's canceled. Like it's not like Acacia isn't a thing. Wait, it's here. Oh wait, no, never. Wait, is it? I don't even. What the fuck? Don't tease me like that. Keijo. Don't get me excited for a potential season 2. We're more likely to get fucking Ava 4.0 and season 2 of No Game No Life than Keijo at this point. But one can always hope.
Yeah. I mean, I would much rather have a season 2 of Keijo than more Ava, but you know.
Damn.
I don't even like Keijo.
I would firmly disagree.
This is, I mean, all Ava fans are degenerates who will be exterminated after the revolution, so, you know.
Damn.
Just watch out. I mean, I already knew you were a revisionist leftcom secretly, but now you're definitely going in the purges.
Damn, I'm gonna have to fucking go and burn my armchair and get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming soon. A communist revolution coming soon to a free state near you.
Coming soon to the future United Socialist States of America near you.
Oh my god, it would be so fucking cool if, like, America and Canada just merged and became the United Socialist States of America. That'd be so fucking dope.
It wouldn't even be that hard. Like, Canada is just, like, you move the border 5 feet and you got, like, 25% of the population.
Yeah, like, I was, no joke, right? When I lived in Maine, I could literally walk into Canada if I just went to a town an hour away.
Yeah.
Because there was this town called, I went to the mental hospital there, I can't remember the name of it, but regardless, it was just this nice little town where, like, if you just walked up the river, you could be in Canada. So, like, with the way the borders of the two countries work, it would not be that hard to merge them. And culturally, too, yeah, there's a bunch of French people, but really, the people of Quebec shouldn't have a say. So, like, culturally speaking, you know, it's more or less the same. You know, it's there are French people, but there's French people in the United States. You know, there's French people all over the place. You know, they already have a general understanding of English, kind of. You know, I feel like when you live in a society like that, you kind of have to know at least a little bit of English. So they would get by. People would help them out because it would be a socialist, you know, country. So they would receive the help that they actually need, you know?
Yeah.
They could just go and get English education if they wanted to, you know?
Yeah. It wouldn't be that hard at that point. Excuse me.
Speaking of which, I've been actually I didn't just finish it. I finished it last night, but I made a new video about prostitution and why leftists should support it.
Is this based off of the Pierre controversy or whatever?
I don't know about any controversy. I just thought it was interesting to talk about. I did see this video by Socialism or Barbarism where he said, oh, leftists shouldn't support prostitution, which I disagreed with. So I wrote my response video to it. I liked how it came out. The thing is that I wanted it to have more of like a meme-y effect. Like I wanted to put more comedy and jokes in it, but then when I tried to implement that into the script, like I would have all of these skits and stuff, but they didn't connect to the actual video. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, if this topic is as, you know, technical as it is, like you can make jokes in light of like incels or sex or whatever, but it just doesn't connect to it, you know, like I don't know how to implement something like that. Like when it comes to jokes, I'm very bad at manufacturing them, at trying to put them into something. I'm much better at a joke just coming naturally out of nowhere. You know, this situation makes sense to say this thing in because my instincts told me so. So when I was writing this script, like, I had all of these technical ideas for how to talk about it. You know, like, okay, the Marxism says this, capitalism says this, what is society doing right now, and stuff like that. You know, that makes sense. It's just quick material analysis. But, like, I wanted, because the problem I have with the left, tanky YouTube specifically, because I'm kind of like a small representation of tanky YouTube who's actually trying to be entertaining, like I wanted, you know, I want to be able to implement comedy and stuff like that and hire, you know, dense editing. But like some topics I just don't know how to do that for. So I'm really trying to figure out how I can bridge this gap between entertainment and material analysis, because that's how you get to people. Like, the reason why ContraPoints is so popular is because she does that, and so I want to try and, maybe be like a Yahtzee Croshaw of Marxist-Leninism.
Oh my god, that would be actually pretty great, I'm not gonna lie, so try doing that. It would just require a lot of, like, really fast, like, talking. And
a lot of practice as well. That's why
lot of practice.
That's why I've been working on so many things that I haven't actually released, which is not like me at all. Like, I usually release a lot of the stuff that I do, but like these days I'm just in my room all the time just thinking about leftism, trying to figure out how to make these things into videos at the detriment of my main channel. Actually, like, I haven't had any videos for the main channel. I've just been making these Shonen Ronin videos.
I think so I was reading something weird in the in that Shonen Hell chat. What is the hafl or whatever the fuck?
Oh, okay, that chat is the containment chat for the member Calliope, because there's a joke that he's like a degenerate that no one likes, so we all love him, it's just we make fun of him. And so we literally banned him from all other chats in the in the server and just gave him that.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
But yeah, what about it?
I saw something interesting. Like, I don't really give a fuck. I just thought it was interesting. There was like a thing in there. Let's see here. Some like weird shit with like hiding in plain sight and like Ayn Rand or whatever. It was based off of a tweet that this girl Smiles or whatever put on Twitter.
Yeah. She was talking about how Hiding in Public had made this video that Cherry had a problem with, because it was basically saying mental illness, I relate to it in Ava, whereas like Smiles, she's a huge Evangelion fan, so she responded. She's like, I can see where you're coming from, because the people who talk about Ava, they're freaks, and they compare, unhealthy psychological problems like the hedgehog's dilemma to themselves. The hedgehog's dilemma is a problem. You shouldn't find relation into it. You shouldn't talk about it like it's a thing that's just normal, because that skews the perception of the show to being about and glorifying these types of these types of psychological problems.
Yeah.
Even though it's not trying to be about that, because the people around it talk about it that way, it becomes that. And so that's the frustration that Cherry has with the show, is that he's disgusted by it now, because the people who talk about it in this way. And I think there are some people who, they do it better. Like, Mr. Cynical did it better, but he ruined it by doing the fucking, death makes life meaningful bullshit that he's always on about. And, you have to be remembered. This literal nonsense. It makes no sense if you look at, material science. Being remembered does not matter.
Yeah.
So he makes a pretty good video that makes a lot of good points, but he messes it up with this weird spiritual nonsense, and it just makes Evangelion fans look even worse. So, like, it's one of those things where it's a matter of perception. How do you see these specific problems? Are you a normally social person, and do you experience these types of problems? Or if you do, how do you see them? And so, like, Cherry's looking at these things and he's saying, well, this is obviously bad for humanity to be talking about these things in this way, because someone's going to find this and then they're going to say, the hedgehog's dilemma is totally me and I identify with it. That's bad. That's bad for people, because you're not getting over it at that point. You're not learning the lesson.
Yeah, that's like, fucking Otto is probably goddamn and rolling. He's doing somersaults in his preemptive grave. I feel like he. Oh, mind you, he's gone on record saying he does like. Basically, he implies he does that literally all the time when people talk about Ava. But, yeah, I think that definitely is something that I definitely find true. Is that people like the whole point of Ava is that one of the many points, because the point. I guess the main point is that you can interpret it however the fuck you want. But one of Ava's core tendencies, I guess you could say, is that like self-improvement is always possible. It's very Sartrean. It's very like, you know, you can fix the things in your life. It's possible. It's just most people have the right mindset to do such things. So because of that, they continue to be miserable, or they build confidence on like loose and shaky foundations, so things don't get better in their lives, or like if they do, it's temporary, it doesn't mean anything, and ultimately they're still miserable. That's the whole fucking point. There's the thing, right?
Right.
Because of that, it's sort of, I think fuck, sorry, I'm trying to articulate myself the best way I can. Like when people identify with the things in Ava, I think they should do so insofar as like, this character went through this thing, that's how I can get out of the situation I am in. At least that's what Anno wants. what he wants you to do. Because like because here's the thing, like Anno doesn't reject otakuism itself. He was going to when he was younger, but then he got married, and then he got back into otakuism. But the thing is, like, he doesn't want otakus to use like the things that they enjoy as a means of escaping reality and themselves and life itself. That's bad.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we in Shonen Hell, we're against that. And so we see these people not getting the message of the show, and we get mad at those people, and so we get mad at the show as well, because it's like, well, why are these people not understanding this? Clearly, you know, the show didn't convey something here. You know, why else would these people, you know, end up coming to these conclusions and being more unhealthy as a result? That's kind of the argument surrounding it.
Well, I think it's just because Ava's good. I think Ava does things like I'm making an analysis series about Ava, and actually I finished a script yesterday. So there will be a video out before the end of the month. That's my fucking goal. God damn it. But like Ava is technically, because I talk about Ava much like Digi did, very technically, in like, how does the things function? How does all these mechanics work together? How do these little character bits mean something? Everything builds off of each other. And what I've discovered through doing the analysis series, because I can do it so fucking easily now, like I can look at an episode I've already analyzed and then pick out 100 million more things that I didn't mention that I just noticed. Like, that's how well made it is. And because Ava is so fucking well made, that it unfortunately did the exact opposite thing it wanted to do. Where, like, while it's definitely helped a lot of people. Like, I can't say it hasn't, because you know, it's how people function in society. Unfortunately, it's made people embrace a lot of escapism because they've discovered how good a story, or like these kinds of stories, right? Because Ava, according to like scholars, Japanese scholars, Ava is basically the Star Wars of Japan.
Oh no, that's even worse.
Yeah, that's how mainstream Ava is. We're like, even if you haven't seen Ava, you've heard of it. You can see stores where they just sell Ava merch. Like, that's how influential Ava is. It's one of the most important pieces of Japanese media ever fucking produced. So it's done. It was so good at being actual entertainment that it wasn't able to be like the sort of you know, retelling of the gospel that it wanted to be.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. But at the same time, the people with vain ideals must be quelled in a purge. That's my stance.
Kill them all.
I want to kill 99% of the population. That's my goal. Thanos was right. Unionize today.
Unionize today. That's the message of your fucking message of your Shonen Ronin video.
Yeah, like the video I made was kind of weird because like I was simultaneously trying to argue that communism would be good for anime, but I did it in kind of a roundabout way because I did it by referencing Soviet economic statistics, which was like I felt like it didn't really connect together. Like it made sense when you think about it, but like
it wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't like point, like, or like it doesn't follow an arc in a very clean way, I guess you could say.
Yeah, the entire video feels very jumpy, and I didn't really know how to fix that because the way that I thought about the subject was kind of all over the place. Like, I thought, well, the film industry is good, so I'll see Lucas talking about that. Well, it didn't flow together. Like, I started out complaining about Digibro. The part complaining about Digibro was pretty good. I liked that part. But
yeah, that part's good.
The rest of the video just kind of spirals out without much of a transition between the things, and it's like, well, if you already agree with this, you're gonna get it. But the people who don't, I'm kind of just telling them, oh, do the research, man, go look at this. And so I thought like there were some kind of creative and cool things about the video. I had fun making it. It's just structurally, I really need to work on how I convey certain points, because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to, get people to understand. And I think it was, it was kind of implicative of the comments that I got, because I would have these long arguments on Reddit and in the comments section as well with people over, things that I felt like could have been explained in the video, but at the same time I didn't want to rail off too much, because if I just gave you a Soviet history lesson of this is all the famines, this is the purges, this is, the economy, it would be a 1-hour video and it wouldn't even be about anime anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I wanted to just give a general idea that communism is good for anime and the Soviet economy was good, but what I should have done in order to convey that was say, an economy where people's needs are met is better because the market's bad, and I should have explained why the market was bad. Very basic things, but people don't get the later stuff without saying that. So the market's bad, and then go into that explaining the Soviet economy, however, did this with the film industry, and it also had a really good economy. By the way, go watch these videos for more information about that.
Yeah.
Like, that would have... I think that would have been more general. Like, that would have gotten people more, but I kind of tried to do everything all at once, and it just went all over the place.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would agree. It was like, the ending of that was kind of fun, because I wanted you to come back and be like, okay, so this is how we fucking fix anime, boys. Which I think, if you had ended it with that, I would have been like, Gucci. But, there's always so much you can do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I basically said, well, communism's how you fix anime. And I mean, the last video that we did kind of talked more about the anime specifics of it. The video, Crunchyroll will fail and Japan needs unions. That's the video Mark made, and then Kolopi voiced it. So that video was really good, and like, it kind of explains more of the anime-specific elements of it. Whereas I just talked about, okay, communism's good, and it's not a bad word, and the comments that you made on the video saying that are wrong. That's why in the beginning I preempt everyone, telling them, yeah, this video is a response to the people saying that. So, I mean, it kind of did that, it didn't flow together. Like, the Dr. Seuss quote at the end, I simultaneously like it, but it also felt kind of out of left field. Like, it didn't really have an emotional transition into that, which I'm learning how to do all these things. I don't know how to do them, so I'm trying to figure it out. And so I think it was definitely a good experiment. The people who liked the video liked it a lot, because there were some kind of cool things done in it. It's just that it was a bit half-baked, structurally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like with my Ava video, I want to connect these both. Check this shit out. So, uh, uh, in my Ava video, uh, the the thing about it that I think I don't like the most about it, because I actually was watching, I rewatched some. I was actually gonna give up on finishing the video before the end of the month, but then I watched my other Ava stuff, and I was like, damn, that's actually like a good point. Like I shit on my own work so much, but my other Ava videos had good points in them. I felt like when I finished the video, I was like, okay, I wasn't dissatisfied with it. So and that just gives you a good mindset of like where I was when I was making most of this video. Because the problem with my Ava video, or like my current one that I'm working on, and I can't fix it now. I'll have to fix it later if I ever want to remake it, or I'll have to fix it at a time which I have the time was working on a bunch of stuff and school at the same time. Is that it didn't have an objective until last night when I finished it. The script did not have a goal in mind. There wasn't a thesis. That's the problem. The essay did not have a thesis until the very end. So like the beginning of the essay is very like neutral. It just seems like I'm just talking about a bunch of points about the episodes I'm talking about in Ava until the very end, where I sort of connect it, kind of, and then I bring back the other episode I was talking about, because there's two episodes I'm talking about. And because of that, it's just sort of, it's a bit weird. It's just weird and like loose. And the thing is, I thought I would have tons of things to talk about in episode 16 and 17, but the irony is that like I don't want to talk too much about the themes yet. I'm gonna hold off on that till later, because I'm talking about technical shit. I'm talking about why does this shit work? What makes it good? That's what I want to talk about. And so, just with that, there is difficulties, I guess you could say. Like I'm just in a difficult fucking part where I'm making something that I'm not entirely happy with, but at the same time I'm okay with it. But I wish I could have done it better. There's like many things I think, like all throughout it, that if I had started from the beginning, I could have done it better. But I'm gonna get this shit out before the end of the month, because I'm realizing that like I can't do what I did before, which is just completely fall into a funk and then never make videos, or like write anything. Because that's what I did. That's what I've been doing the past like over a year and a half, and it's made me miserable. So I'm gonna try to like work video making back into my school, which is which I did during my my old pony days.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I fall into the same thing too, because like oftentimes I'll get so caught up into just producing a thing that I forget why I'm doing it or what I should be making. And so a good thing for me is always going back to my inspirations. Like when I made that when I made that video that was just put up on the Shonen Ronin channel that we were talking about, the thing that made me push through that, because I wasn't gonna make it, like I was like, okay, the writing in this is bad, whatever, forget it. The thing that made me want to finish it just for me, just because I thought it was fun, was I was reading one of my favorite writers on the internet, Geo Trickster. I was reading his blog where he talked about Taiwan. It was called Taiwan. Will Taiwan Fight? I can send you a link to it. It's really good.
Sure.
But yeah, I like him a lot. And so I was reading his stuff on geopolitics, and like I was like, whoa, writing is cool. Stuff in writing can happen. This is really good.
I feel that, to be honest.
Yeah, so like,
oh my god,
having read his stuff, I just got so inspired just about the mere concept of writing that I needed to do more. And so I started coming up with ideas for different projects and finishing that one. I finished, like, because I only had 2 paragraphs written, so I just finished the rest of it, and then I voiced and edited the entire thing immediately after, and over the course of like an hour, which my manic style of making videos certainly adds to the lack of structural integrity, but It's one of those things where, when you get really inspired, when you get into the thick of it, it's like you can't stop. And it's kind of hard to add in that mediation of of how the values are going to be conveyed when you're just like, oh my god, the fucking values are so good. Like, it's one of those things where you have to strike a kind of balance, but I don't know how to do that with my own creativity. And so I'm constantly finding myself in these manic spikes of creativity and then these low lows of just not wanting to do anything.
Yes.
And so I've found it's helpful to try and trick my brain into getting another manic spike by just looking at the stuff I'm really inspired by. I've been doing that a bit more, and it's actually been helping. It also kind of helps to just try and reinvigorate your ideas, try to look to subjects that you wouldn't normally do, experiment both with the writing and the visual process. Just trying to always add in new elements like that helps. It helps to not think about only making one type of video and to be looking all over the place for inspiration, to always be looking to things that make you feel good. But the problem with this is that it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Yes, you're going to feel more emotionally vigorated, but the problem with that is that you're still relying on the emotions to get the thing done rather than just relying on sheer brute force and technical strength. So
Yeah.
if you know how to be technical in a writing or speaking sense or whatever, then you know how to just sit down and write something good. A lot of my favorite writers can do that, but if you rely only on inspiration and the emotions to carry the script, then you're going to use that as a crutch, and that's dangerous because you'll be producing, you'll be producing less quality of videos because you're not practicing all the time. You're only practicing when you feel like it, and so even though you're practicing more in that sense, when you inspire yourself more by, just doing these tactics to up your emotions, you're still relying on the emotions. And that's the problem that I'm trying to sort through right now, making myself more disciplined rather than relying on these momentary spikes of inspiration.
Yeah. That definitely is like an aspect of my writing process for the past few days, because I'm like, I'm gonna get this motherfucking video. And what I've noticed that I'm really good at is I'm really good at making videos in a very short amount of time. When I made pony videos, because here's the thing, like, when I made pony analysis videos, I only had, from like the episode of release to the time that it went up, that the guy would select him to go on the EQD front page. Like, you basically had about 4 days to like edit the thing, and then, or like edit the audio and the video, and you had about a day to write it, or about like 1 to 2 days, depending on your work ethic in terms of that. So I'm just used to making videos in a really short amount of time. There's a sort of pressure in that gets me going, that I can sort of bank off of as like energy I need, is just the idea of a release date. I think is something that definitely makes me want to finish something. But of course, it has to be super fucking short. Like, I can't have a release day in like 2 weeks. It doesn't work. It has to be within the next 5 days. I have to have the entire video done. And I think that's there's the problem with that, which is I can only make things that I can make in a week, unless I have somebody else edit it for me. Because, for example, like, I've had a Cowboy Bebop video planned for the past like 4 months, and I've only now getting around to finally starting to maybe write it. I didn't have the discipline to finish the anime, because I should have really finished the anime in maybe like 2 weeks, and then watched and read a bunch of articles about like theories and how the world works and blah 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 blah, and then like read about production, and then wrote the video. Done in like 3 months. It would have been, at least the research part would have been done in like a month and a half, but I didn't do that. So it definitely is something I need to work on, is stuff like that, and also like, just balancing that, and on top of like doing all the other things I want to do, and like, playing video games and like keeping my brain in tune with like the pop culture stuff that I like, and also keeping up with anime and the current season, and because there's 100 million shows. Like I have almost 150 shows on my mal that I want to get around to, or movies, I guess. I've only been able to get around to some of them, and it takes me forever to get through any of them. So, like, if you see like the start and stop dates, they're very usually far apart, just because it takes me so long. And there's very few instances in which I can get through some very short amount of time. Like I have to really fucking push myself to just fucking go. I have to make a goal in my mind of like, I'm finishing this anime today when I start from this period in time. From this period of time until this period of time, I'm going to fucking finish this shit, and I don't care what happens else. And I do, but that usually doesn't happen because I have other things that I have to occupy my time with.
It's hard for me to do that because I think the vast and overwhelming majority of anime is bad. And like most anime that I actually get through that's not made from the 80s or 90s is like a slog and is terrible. So I will finish these shows because I'm autistic. But
yes.
By the time I finish them, I give them a 3 or a 4 out of 10 because I don't like modern anime. And I keep watching all of them because, hey, Rakugo Shinju was really good. Mitsuboshi Colors was really good. I just need to wait. I just need to watch all the shows until I finally find the next one of those because I can't trust other people to talk about what I like. No one gives a fuck about what I like. So I have to, I have to watch all these terrible, terrible shows with the hope that maybe, just maybe, I'll find one that I like, and it's so bad because all I have to do with the 80s and 90s, right, is just to say, that's a show from the 80s, and then I watch it, and then I say, I like it. And, like, it's so much easier just to do that. I know, based on just looking at the box art of a lot of older shows, that I'm going to like it. So when it comes to newer anime, it's so much harder to navigate. Even with shows I like a 20-minute episode will feel like it's 50 minutes long, and by the time it's over, I just won't have any energy. And I'll want to watch the rest of it too. That's the thing, is I'll want to see more. And it's really weird. Like when I watched when I watched Armitage 3 and Serial Experiments Lane, it was very different because I could just watch both of those shows back to back. Because Armitage was like a 3 or 4 episode OVA. Each of them were like 40 minutes. That's not that bad. But Lane was a normally sized show, and I didn't take breaks when I watched either of those. I watched those more or less in the same time frame. So like, watching those shows, it was like I could just sit down and be enveloped in it. But when I watched Urarara Mido, I don't know. I say it like it's Spanish. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Mido.
No. Like I watched that show, and because A talked about it on 8chan, and I was like, well, if A likes this show, then it's got to be at least kind of okay. I watched the entire thing. And it was just standard cute girls making jokes that aren't funny with no personality. And it's like, I want fucking K-On! Again. K-On! Was so good. And it's like, if K-On!, what's it called, Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, these are really, really good shows that they take the cute girls genre and then they make it into something special. They use the medium of the genre as an advantage to tell a more interesting story than they could have without being that. But these shows, they take the most surface level elements and then they pump out just nonsense, and people buy it. They buy it because it has a cute fucking bitch on the... God damn it.
I think the thing is, like, I think anime is running into the same issue that, it doesn't have the same amount, but it has a similar issue that the gaming community has, and Digi talks about this, where there's no fucking historical backing in anime. When people start an anime, they watch maybe some of the, like, they get into the most basic things that people, like, consider essentials, right? And then they continue on from there into the modern sort of discussion-based stuff, right? Because of the whole discussion thing in Western anime circles where, like, you have to be in the in crowd talking about the current fucking things coming out right now. And I mean, I think that's part of the issue, right? Because I remember Digi said about Bunny Girl Senpai that if you had seen Haruhi and Monogatari, you would have think, like, why the fuck would you ever need to watch it? Because if you had seen those shows already, it's basically the same thing. I mean, and as somebody has seen both Bake and Kizu Monogatari, I can kind of attest to the point he was making. I haven't seen Haruhi yet, but I suspect it's probably similar to Haruhi. And yes, like, I mean, Bunny Girl Senpai is just those shows made in the context of modern anime. And that essay you sent me about that, this video series about that guy about why it's everything wrong with modern anime, but he still likes it. I think it definitely is something that I would have to probably agree with. In terms of just like, yeah, it's not. I still enjoy Bunny Girl Senpai. I still don't regret watching it. I still like a lot of the aesthetic things, and the music is good. But I think definitely it's not like anything like avant-garde as Monogatari, where with its weird ass camera angles and esoteric Japanese references. It's not like that. And so because of that, it just exists as its own functioning entity. Like, I'm looking at the current season right now, right? And let's see, what do we got here? In the top 9. So we got Rising of the Shield Hero, which when I first watched it, I thought it was dog shit, and as it goes along, I'm like, oh, this is okay. Like, it's not anything bad or exemplary. It has some interesting ideas in it. It's nothing like blowing your mind. It's not blowing your mind. There's Mob Psycho 102, which so far I don't like as much as Mob Psycho 101, which is something that I did binge because it was fucking amazing. But it was okay. It's okay. Neverland, or what the fuck is it called? The Promised Neverland, which I saw episode 1 of, and that was okay. It had some cool things in it. It was all right. It's definitely not almost a 9. I don't know where the fuck people get that from. And I don't know where the fuck Mob Psycho 102 gets an 8.7. The show is barely fucking started. Or Rising of the Shield Hero gets a 8.47, but that's just because it's source material. But then you got some Dororo, which is cool. Like, it's cool and the action's good. It's just not my thing, so I dropped it. But I could see why maybe someone would give it like an 8.4. But then you got other weird shit like Boogie Pop and others, which has a 7, or like nearly a 7, right? Or fucking Domestic Girlfriend. Which I do watch and I fucking love to death, but that's just because I meme the shit out of it. It's really funny. But like other shit in here, like Day to Live, Kateguri, which I've heard nothing about, 2, that nobody cares about, fucking Love is War, I don't even know what the hell that is. But the thing is, a lot of these shows, because there's no historical reference in a lot of people's taste in anime currently, a lot of things get rated, for example, and overhyped, and overblown as great things, when in reality they're okay if you've seen them in the context of other works. Like, Violet Evergarden is one of the best animated and directed shows I've seen, but the writing is very okay. Episode 10 is good, like actually has interesting things going on. Episode 12 is dumb. The finale episode, but the rest of the episodes are okay. They're okay, like, story wise, like nothing deep or complex is happening. Violet's cool, I guess, but besides that, it's not like best anime of the fucking year or anything close to that.
No. It's the best anime in existence because it has visuals.
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me take my retarded ass back to fucking my goddamn video games, because I clearly don't understand the nuances of, as long as aesthetic is there, narrative matters little.
Are you blind, brah? Can you even see with your eyes?
Are you see with your eyeballs? That fucking, how good it looks like.
Can you even see at 60 frames per second?
Oh my god. It's very much... It's very much like that. I mean, there's a lot of things in anime I like and is good, still, but most of the things on my mal are classics because I say fuck the rest
Mhm.
because the rest of it looks garbage. Like
Hell
I don't
yeah.
because like I'm gonna probably go watch I Want to Eat Your Pancreas in theaters probably either like next week at some point. Just yeah, the next Thursday or like 2 Mondays from now because that's when it's being presented in the theater. But I'll probably go watch it. It's like the number 48th highest rated anime on Mal without too many views, which I think is very interesting because it's one of those few shows like movies slash the same fucking thing about that like not a lot of people have seen, but people who have seen it really like it enough to give it a high score. The top reviews, written reviews, don't reflect that. It's very mixed, but the people who've seen it and generally speaking rate it but don't give reviews give it a high score. So I'm wondering, does it deserve the score it gets because it's that good, or is it because it's so like it's such a product of like it's seen by people nowadays, but they haven't seen other things that are like it, so they can't compare the different things. So it's just that's the best I've seen of this thing, you know? Like maybe if I were to see Digi's favorite romantic comedy, His and Her Circumstances, and then I watch I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, maybe I'd think that the His and Her Circumstances is better. And maybe I would think I Want to Eat Your Pancreas is a fucking knockoff or something like that because it looks just like it doesn't look anything unique or special. So,
Yeah. I'll tell you straight
yeah.
up. I'll tell you straight up. When I watched Bunny Girl Senpai, I dropped it after 7 minutes. And I feel like that show and its ilk are basically indicative of the entire anime circle right now. Because
Mhm.
something like Bunny Girl Senpai or Violet Evergarden are going to be hailed as these masterpieces that get these 10 out of 10 scores because new anime fans show up. And then even the older ones are saying, well, this is the best thing of the season. Why is it the best thing of the season? Yeah, sure, it might connect with a few people. I have no doubts that A Place Further Than the Universe, for example, is a great show that can connect with many people. But when you have anime being your sole hobby that you do all the time, that you followed season after season, you just kind of become used to mediocrity. You see these shitty backgrounds and cliched characters, and it all becomes part of your everyday. It's like the food that you always eat at lunch because you can't afford anything else. It's just
Yeah.
kind of there. It's not particularly bad or good. It's just always been there. But I'll tell
Yeah.
you, as soon as you get something else consistent in your life that is better, you're not gonna want to go back to that lunch. You're gonna detest it quite a bit for its taste. And
Yeah.
so when I got really big into 80s shows, which I started out as an anime fan from getting into the stuff from the 80s, which is very different than a lot of people in my circle in general. They got in through like Blend S or some shit like that. Like I got in through, Venus Wars and Fist of the North Star and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Akira, fuck, what's that movie? Golgo 13, The Professional. Like stuff
Yeah.
like that was, really well animated, some kind of masculine stuff, a lot of sci-fi in there. I watched all three of the Gundam movies back to back. And so, you know, for me, I can see the classics of the past in the mirror. It's all there. And I haven't had time to really get used to this kind of cesspoolish indulgence in just the everyday of anime. Watching an episode of Blend S or Aromanga Sensei is not my everyday lunch. I don't function that way the way these other people do. And so, of course, when they see something that's marginally better, like a Bunny Girl Senpai or whatever, they're like, "Oh my fucking god, this is the masterpiece of the century because it has slightly more sauce on it than the other sandwich I ate yesterday. Oh my fucking god." And it's like I can see where you're coming from your perspective, but if you just go back and find all this other stuff that was really toiled over, you can find something special in it. And I'm not trying to negate personal experience here because I can see why people like the show, and there's a lot of people who aren't just relating to anime in this way. There's some people who do legitimately find great qualities about it, and I respect that. I'm not trying to write off all fans of the show as being like this, but there are a lot that are. And I think, I think that's just something to analyze. Like, I'm not saying these people are wrong for feeling that way or for living this way. I'm more so just analyzing the cause and effect of what it is. And, like, I understand why people have their individual preferences when it comes to these shows, because there's a lot of bad movies from the 80s that I like. Traditionally speaking, they're bad. Their writing is kind of mixed up and there's cliches in it, but I identify with the cliches because they say something to me. And maybe those cliches say something to somebody else in terms of modern anime, but they don't to me, so I disagree with it. But, like, it's one of those things where there are a lot of different reasons why people watch anime, but I think with a lot of people it just becomes this habitual process of just having stuff on. And, people watch an entire show and then they just forget about it to go on to the next one. It's very weird to me. Like I do the same thing, I just don't enjoy doing it. So sometimes I wonder, well, why am I doing this? Because I'm doing the same thing. Like,
yeah, it's very Netflix kind of binge watch kind of culture where you fucking consume something really fast and then you're like, oh, okay, and then you move on with your life. I remember my one of my film professors asked me, because she noticed that people who tend to watch anime and people who watch Western stuff seem to consume it differently, and there's just like a difference. It seems something more authentic about it, and I gave her a terrible answer when I first sort of was going through my I was giving my answers, because I never heard that's the most interesting question I think I've been asked in a long time, is what is the difference between anime consumption and Western media consumption. And the thing is, like, because it's so fetishistic, like otaku stuff is very fetishistic, so it plays to whatever interest you want.
Yeah. It's like, passion versus passivity.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, things that you like, you really, really, really like. And things that are whatever, you're whatever, and very often you just fucking drop it and not care about it later. Like, so, instead of wasting your time with tons of shows you don't care about, like in Western stuff, where you have to sort of sift through it a lot, because you can't really trust reviews. I think anime is more consistent. you can trust the reviews pretty well of, like, if it's good, probably good for a reason. If it's bad, probably fucking bad. Or, like, if it's okay, then maybe always some people liked it. And so, like, it just depends on, like, how pop it is how high the score tends to be. Like, if it really tends to, like, jive with what people like, then they'll give it a high score.
Right.
And Western media is just less fetishistic, so it tries to play more general, and so because of that, it placates to no one. So a lot of time you're just consuming something, and you're like, okay, and then you move on with your life.
And then at the same time, like, with anime, it's kind of an outcast medium. By being an anime fan, you are rebelling to the current paradigms that are in place, and you're saying, we need something better than that. Now, I do think anime as a whole has become very consumeristic and less niche over time, just kind of relying on these same tropes to get an audience, where the heart behind it, the countercultural heart, has become nothing more than another shilling of commodities. But at the same time, there is that culture to it that's been there for a very long time that people still feel, and that's what matters. Where, like, by being an anime fan, people in society in general will see that as kind of strange, kind of out there. And so, as an anime fan, you sit down and you say, I'm going to envelop myself into this more in direct rebellion to society as a whole. In Japan, Otaku no Video had this. The guy who was like a tennis player, Major Chad, fucking all the bitches. The modern day, the modern day equivalent of the guy who's posted in the 4chan memes of the Stacy versus the Chad or whatever. Those people. Yeah. Those people were kind of shown in this Otaku no Video as being totally different than the otakus in the show. And so this guy, he was a tennis player, he had a girlfriend, and then all of that goes away because he gets more and more into anime. And it's not just because of the time that he's dedicating to it, it's also because it's weird, it's strange, people don't respond well to that. And so, he declares himself that I'm going to become the otaku king because these rigid structures that are telling me to conform to society in the face of something that I like is not right. And thus, they become even more passionate about it, because now they're the underdog who has to fight against the enemy, and everyone loves being the person who's, defending against... underdog. Who's defending against a bigger cause. That's why these movements where they say YouTube is killing freedom of speech and all this other stuff, it's not really about freedom of speech, it's about, demonizing a bigger structure that feels like it's oppressing the little guy. That's the real emotional basis of that. Feels like
it's censoring the small boys.
And so then the small boys have to fight against it, and that's the real moral basis of that, that keeps people coming to it. And otaku is very, very much the same thing, because it's like, I am going against this. The society does not mean what I mean. This belies anything that has to do with me. And so, like, the reason why it looks so passionate is because it's part of their identity. People don't make watching television or Netflix part of their identity. It just doesn't happen. That's mainstream media. Everybody knows it. It's like seeing a car drive by. Well, is the existence of cars my identity? No. Like, it's one of those things where if it's that strange, and if you're that enveloped in it, and if you're using it as a means of rebelling to a bigger thing, it is going to be more genuine, because the feelings are very big.
Yeah, it's very visceral, right?
Yeah.
It definitely... I think the issue with a lot of modern anime is that... anime is because it's so fetishistic, is widely appealing to many people. And because it's so widely appealing, they're going to try to market it towards more people. And I think, to a degree, that's good, because I want anime to be a successful medium with money in it, so then we can make more good things, like fucking Girl Lagann or something like that, where it's very unique. But obviously the issue with that is that you're going to get a lot of garbage on top of that. It becomes Western media where it's just tons of garbage and schlock, and you have to wade through it to find the good things. And that's, I think, the main problem. There's like 60 fucking 90 shows coming out a season. Like, that's just going to happen,
Yeah, and I mean, that befalls on the whole market economy, the way that whole structure works. But, like, I think, one of the big things about anime fandom that I would like to talk more about that isn't really talked about is this concept that I've been trying to figure out how to word this. I've called it manufactured authenticity in the past, but it's kind of like there was a guy who referred to it as something. Let's see, what was it called? Studied casualness. Yeah, like, the thing about anime as a medium is that, like, a lot of otakus, they think of this epicenter of the otaku aesthetic. What is it? And they often think about filling their rooms with posters and manga and DVDs and all these different things. But when you're watching a show, by nature, watching a show is a casual experience. But the way that they study that, and they kind of manufacture a new form of authenticity, manufacture a new form of casualness, is by, putting up all of these barriers, all these different things, to get into the hobby of, like, if I'm going to be the mega otaku, I have to have all these things. I have to be deep into this aesthetic, which is what it is. But, like, the aesthetic is watching TV shows, which is an inherently casual act, but you're doing it through this extremely passionate and manufactured means where you have to, where you have to put all this stuff up. So, like, it's very strange the way that comes out. Like, And I remember this lecture. This guy had said Japan works so hard at studied casualness. Where like in all of their culture, like they work so hard on making the smallest things, like the most casual items have tons of detail put into them. The way that they act, the way that they conduct themselves, all these different social rules that are meant to be casual, where they're still rules, they had to be studied. Like everything about their society is kind of built in that way. So it's really interesting to me how that affects the anime sphere as a whole, and the way that it's represented, because the way that it's represented is often in this very passionate, visceral form.
Yeah, definitely. I think, man, I like obviously, if anything, like a lot of anime. Like I remember you were talking about 80s anime earlier, and I saw like whenever I think about 80s anime, I just think about Gunbuster because that's like the first thing that comes to mind because it's something that Anno made. And it's just Gunbuster's very unique. It's a very unique piece of work that you'll never like. You've seen it a million times because technically the entire thing is a parody of sports anime, but it's its own thing. It's very unique. But that to me, I think, is very quintessential of what sort of authentic is. Because whenever older people talk about Gunbuster, they're like, "Holy shit, it's a fucking classic, one of the best anime ever made." Blah 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 blah. Right? But it's like when you watch it now in modern context, it's a very typical story, especially episode 1. That's literally just a sports anime with robots in it. Because technically, I think it's a parody of a tennis anime from the 70s called Aim for the Ace. Just fun fact about Gunbuster. So because of that, it's it's a very typical story for a lot of it. It has a lot of interesting ideas and concepts though that make it above most things, I would say, whether they're released now or they're released later. Like the idea of Gunbuster is that a normal girl, just anybody that could be anybody, sort of the everyman, but it's just a girl. It's a very interesting concept. But she becomes selected by Chief, or I think that's his name, who's like one of the coaches who teaches this high school of girls how to fucking pilot robots, to go into a war to defeat aliens. And that's a lot of anime nowadays have way more interesting concepts than that. That's a very basic concept. And like the whole thing is about her going into space, and like this whole thing about like string theory, and like when you teleport through space, time moves really fast, so faster outside than it does inside. So like all these things are happening, but then outside when they go back to like humanity, time's moved on, but they haven't. All this other shit. But in the anime, as I just mentioned, interesting things are in it that are really sort of cool to like look at and think about and experience, and the animation's just fucking great. It's just awesome. It's awesome. At least for many parts of it. Some parts obviously is very 80s, so it's just still frames moving, but it doesn't like negate the entire goodness of the work, right?
Yeah. I feel that.
Which is unique.
Yeah, I think I gave Gunbuster like a 7 or a 6 out of 10. Like, I liked it. I thought it was good. But I didn't have this overwhelming, authentic feeling that a lot of people tend to get out of it. I got, more of that feeling out of watching the second Gundam movie, which surprisingly enough is people's least favorite of all the Gundam movies, and like that's the one I like the most. So it goes back to, I have to watch everything because people aren't going to represent what my tastes are. Like, when I say my favorite Gundam movie is the second one, people think I'm insane, So it's one of those things where, like, I have to just keep looking through until I find something good. But Gunbuster is definitely a very authentic work because the characters, they feel expressive, like, not just in how they're animated, in how they express themselves, like the facial reactions and everything. Like, it's very spot on and the music as well, like, the way that the way that the show kind of ties the very, I'm trying to find a word for the soundtrack, like, very upbeat, hype, and bombastic. That's the word I was looking for. Bombastic, yeah. Very big emotions. And so it because it's structured in that way, and because like the emotional parts, like the things that we respond to emotionally, faces, reactions, how expressive are the characters, and then music, like it was able to make something that is just very human at that core, because if you can manipulate those things, then you're probably going to get people's emotions, because it's a basic story, you know.
It's very basic story.
Yeah. But, like, when it comes... The reason why a story is basic is because it speaks to the heart. You know, a basic story, in and of itself, the reason why it's cliched is because these are things people have recognized respond well with people. The only way that you have to convey it in the modern world is just by making that idea feel reinvigorated, make it feel like it is, you know, new, even though it's not. That's why every story has been told, but the cliched ones are just really good at being human. And so in order to keep them from being cliched or bad versions of what it's trying to accomplish, you have to give these very expressive caricatures, bombastic music, and in order for people to be interested in it, you know, what's her name shouldn't just live on a farm or whatever to join the military or something. She needs to be in space. You know, she needs to not just be on a sports team, she needs to be on a galactic sports team.
Yeah, fucking Noriko needs to goddamn fight robot.
Yeah, and there need to be Soviets in there as well.
There needs to be Soviets. That part was fucking... Young is so funny. For one, because Young is a Korean name. It's not Russian. But... just, like, the idea of, like, the Russian going complete 180 and going from, I hate Japanese people, to, like, y'all are cool, I guess. I don't know why. It's just really funny to me. But I think, like, the thing about that was it was technically, it's weird. Gunbuster is like a weird it's an anti-Cold War movie, technically, or an OVA, I guess, just because it's about, like, it doesn't, like, regardless of ideology, it doesn't really matter. It's just, like, we need to complete our goal and defeat these weird-ass aliens that are trying to kill everyone. Which is fucking great. And, like, the ending of Gunbuster is just nothing like a lot of things I've seen, where it just is so fucking 80s, but is so authentic. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, this truly whimsical thing that you can only get at a certain things. Like, I think Back to the Future 1 has that, which is why it is my favorite Western movie ever made, because it captures whimsy in such a way that no other movie can for me. You know? It's a very 80s-esque way. Like, when Marty is in the fucking DeLorean, he's driving down the road trying to get to the lightning pole that Doc is setting up, so then he could, like, hit the thing in the DeLorean and hit 80 miles per hour and go back to the future. Like, that part, that in particular, when he plays that fucking theme, it's like da-da-da-da-da-da, and it just, everything works together. And it's such a wondrous way to create this really wholesome whimsy that just very few things can get. And, like, Gunbuster has a lot of odd things in it, but it's very, like, from a place of innocence. Like, because Anno is just so Anno that he doesn't do a lot of things, at least at that time in his career, he didn't do things for cynicism. So, for example, when the entire scene in the hot springs, when there are just naked girls everywhere, like, that's not for titillization. It's just Anno trying out things with animation. For example, it's a very, like, 80s way of analyzing something like that, or, like, trying to work it. Same with the boob jiggle, or her fucking ripping out the gunbuster, the Buster Machine's fucking chest, and, like, it also exposes her tit. Like, that's just also, like, a super, like, kind of, like, you know, campy-ass 80s thing to do, but it's still prolific, and it's, you know, in the way that it captures the whole thing. And Die Buster, the sequel, sort of captures the same thing, just through different relationships, because obviously it's a sequel, and in a different way, and I like Die Buster more, but yeah.
Oh, I hate Die Buster so
You
much.
hate Die Buster?
Oh, I
Why?
hate it with a passion. Like
Why?
I've tried to explain this. I had a Twitter rant explaining it. I can't actually remember my points anymore because the show is so forgettable that that all of it has just left my mind at this point. But like everything from the aesthetic to the way it's structured, it's just so bad. Like it feels. I used to know how to explain it, but I hate that fucking show with a passion. It's like, I think I gave it a 1. Like, it's one of my least favorite anime.
Oh, I can understand why you might not be able to like Die Buster, because some of the characters in it are shit, and there's certain parts that are dumb. But I definitely want to give it a 1. I definitely want to say it's horrible. Die Buster is a very entertaining OVA show. I don't know how else you describe it. It's very entertaining. It fits in with the continuity very well. It's very much a sequel to Gunbuster. Aim for the top 2. It's why it's called that. There are some things that are purposefully, I think, left unexplained, and that's fine. And I think certain concepts are just fucking sick. It's just sick, dude. That's the best way I can describe it. And there's very few things like Die Buster that I've seen that's just like, it's able to connect back to the source material in a way that's so respectful of the original source material while at the same time not being like a complete copy. Like it's its own story, and it takes the original concepts of Gunbuster and spins them in interesting ways, which is why I like Die Buster more. And also just like, I don't know, Nono's great. So I just love her so much. So that's why I like Die Buster as much as I do. But I can see why one would not like it. Because I was even when I was watching it, I was like, I could totally see somebody fucking hating this. Like, and just not jiving well at all with the concept. Or like the execution of Die Buster. But me, it jives with what I like in my anime. Has characters I like that do cool things and reference cool shit. Like, one of the posters for Die Buster is just a reference to a poster from Gunbuster. Like, that's fucking sick. I just don't know how else to describe how continuity can be used in such a seamless, interesting way. And I'm not even nostalgic that much for Gunbuster. Like, I had only seen it 2 days prior. But despite that, it was able to connect it in a way that made me feel a sense of nostalgia in a weird roundabout sense.
Yeah.
So it's effective at what it's trying to do. And that's why I like it. But you're fine. I'm not mad at you.
I mean, I would argue that it's not, but I don't know how to argue it, so I'm gonna assume that you're right here. Because for all I know, I could be wrong, because I watched that, like, a year ago, and I gave an incredibly incendiary Twitter rant about it just because I was so pissed off. And that Twitter's been deleted, so I don't have a way of going back to find those tweets. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. My old desktop computer sitting over here, I think, has my Twitter archive on it. So I don't know. I might find it, but I don't see a point in watching the show to justify a stupid point I made a year ago.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume you have the better hand in this argument, because I literally don't remember why I hated it.
Yeah, like that's perfectly fine. I mean, I watched Die Buster like a month ago, so I have a better verse on like the shit that happened than you did. So I have a clear advantage in this debate. So it's no big deal.
I have the real advantage here by having a higher IQ from my skin tone.
Oh, thanks, Charles Murray. You proved me wrong. Damn, dude, I forgot. I'm a mulatto. I can't even... I don't have the brain capacity because I'm not a pure, completely saintly white man. I cannot, like, my poor brown person brain cannot even begin to comprehend the absolute facts you're laying upon me. So even if you had tried to argue. I wouldn't even be able to withstand it. It's like in a weird kind of ecchi dating sim, but there's like fighting in it. You know, there's a game where like you fight people and you like rip off girls' clothes and shit. And when you're ripping off their clothes, it like gives you like a weird ecchi fucking like anime 2D thing, even though it's a 3D game. It's like that.
Undead and Undressed, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, it's like that shit. I wouldn't even be able to withstand it. So
Well, I mean, your people are known for stealing other people's property and giving it to the state and killing literally millions of people. Like, I mean, look at Fidel Castro. Your people have literally continued to starve millions of people around the earth. If that's not a sign of low IQ, I don't know what is.
that's very true. I can't even like begin to. It's hard to even process my own history as a human being, myself as an individual, let alone history of different various brown ethnic groups that I'm technically a part of by association.
You know, son, you're one of the good ones. I think I'm going to circumcise you, but I am going to spare you from the genocide that I will eventually commit on your people.
Thank you, Master. That is very kind of you. I'm just a poor old Negro. I don't know anything.
I say this all as I'm once again clenching my copy of Gorilla Mindset very close to my chest.
Oh my god. The gorilla mindset. Oh.
Hey, I read this book. I'm not only white, but I have read the sacred document by which my life is commanded, known as Gorilla Mindset, by the Lord and Savior of our people, by the Prime Minister and Pastor by which we are commanded, Mike Cernovich.
Mike Cernovich, the true God in our the next Muhammad, if you will, of white people, the true Buddha of Northern America.
He is the judge and the jury. He is the prosecutor and the defendant.
And the defendant at the same time. He is also the jury, but there's no fucking point in that. So that's why we tend to skip that fact in itself. The executioner is not merely him. No, it is merely a facet of him. It's like the top part of your pinky finger. If you lop that shit off, like Yakuza style, that would be the amount of effort he needs to put in to become the executioner. Like
yes.
that's he's just such a fucking god that you can't even compare.
I apologize. I was just masturbating to very straight images of Mike Cernovich. I couldn't exactly hear all of what you were saying, but it definitely did not have anything to do with my IQ. That I know that's true.
Who's the guy who was talking about like how masculine he was despite the fact he cooked or something like that? He was like a PUA. Oh my god. How was his fucking name? I can't remember. He was one of the first people too. Let me see. What's his name? Shit. It's a book called like Sex or something like that. It's literally just that's the book. That's what it's called. It's also this book called Sex by Madonna. But anyways, so is it just called Sex or it's called like Flesh or something like that? It's called like maybe like Orgasm, something along that line. It definitely is. This man is a fucking. He looks kind of like a gnome now because he has a big ass beard. But oh my god, this dude was like, I know it seems like it's a feminine thing, but truly cooking is a masculine project, and it's like, oh dude. Oh fuck. Oh god, dear. I love it. Fucking oh man, the manosphere is such an interesting thing. I love it and hate it so much. I can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just responding to this thing about Spanish in another Discord. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a Brazilian friend of ours came back, and I got excited about it.
Gucci.
Yeah, we were talking about Portuguese versus Spanish. I have no opinion on this because I speak neither, nor have I studied them. Well, actually, that's not true. I studied Spanish for a little bit when I was like 7 or 8, but I mostly just knew how to order alcohol with it. When I was very little, my dad would speak Cuban to me, because he knew a good amount of Cuban Spanish back then. He doesn't seem to remember much of it anymore besides swears and, basic things, but I used to be able to speak a little bit of Cuban Spanish when I was little, which was ironic given the fact that the direction that I would eventually go in.
Yes.
That was a very strange yes. This is like I'm
Sorry,
feeling the spiritual power of this right now.
Sorry, I was just thinking so much about Mike Cernovich that like it just reinvigorated my soul to want to have sex again. Like I rediscovered what sexuality means.
The power of his figure just eluded itself over you with nothing but.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll fucking watch the Dick Show and become fucking MGTOW once again before that happens.
Oh no. I feel like watching Dick Masterson has just turned Digibro into like a bitter just a bitter libertarian. Like, Dick disagrees on stuff with race relations, but at the same time, if your entire worldview is that the world has fucked you over, Digi making statements about black people supposedly ruining his life or whatever, like, I think there's a correlation here, not gonna lie.
Where did he say that? Or did he say that?
Okay, he didn't say it in those exact terms, but I'm pretty sure this was a joke, but he just said like, "Oh, you did this to me. You people did this to me." But he said it right after he was talking about black millionaires, so I thought it was funny to draw that connection. I need to rewatch the video to know if that's actually true. But he did say them right after each other, so it's a funny connection to make. And given the context of the video where he's like, more or less saying, that that he needs a platform and that, he's been oppressed too and all that other stuff. So I just thought it was funny to draw the connection.
I gotcha. Yeah, like, well, Dick, if you watch enough Dick, like, I think Dick definitely is justified in his anger against the world for fucking him over as much as it did, because he had a career and then Maddox killed it. That was like fucking. It was like, dude, Maddox fucking Hiroshima the fuck out of Dick's career. Like, yeah. That's just how bad it was.
Which was wrong.
Which is very wrong. Very ethically. Oh, it's so bad. I cannot believe a man would do that to somebody else. Especially since like his online life and his personal politics was detached from his professional world. So I don't know why he would even. Anyways.
Yeah, it's one of the, the stuff that he was doing online was just kind of for fun. He was a comedian. Yeah. Like, Dick seems like a good enough guy. Like, it doesn't seem like the right thing to do at all. Even if someone was a bad guy, just trying to come after their entire life, like, they should still have the chance to change. I don't know.
It became more of a fucking like red-pilled boy afterwards, so it's like it just made it worse.
Yeah, it is ironic.
Definitely, yeah, it just like I think definitely Dick is an individual that was very clearly highly influential to Digi and his politics.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But isn't necessarily the perfect individual to influence your politics.
Yeah.
Just in the amount of anger, I think makes it a little more precarious, I guess you could say.
And Digi has a history of taking anger like that seriously instead of as a joke. With Endless Jest, Endless Jest does it as a joke, and then
Endless Jest anger is a meme, and Endless Jest is
then Digi interprets that egotism as making it okay for him to do the same thing unironically, which ended up backfiring, and Devu was the most extreme example of this. He took it to a whole other level with the, the egotism and, the anger and stuff, if you see the way he talks to fans now. So, like, Devu wasn't always like that. He was a very fair and principled person. Like, the debate that he did with, what's it called? The guy who commented on his railway track video or whatever. The Dov, I think it was. It was his debate with Dov. Like, that entire, like, string of videos that he did there were extremely fair and balanced, but now Devu just seems like a bitter cesspool of anger that Endless Chess was making fun of with his comedy, with him doing that. It's like they became the parody they looked up to.
Yeah, I think that's the irony, is a lot of Endless is sort of a quasi-satire of himself and the internet. Like, that's his entire basis for his Horseshoe saga was supposed to be a parody of brony analysts while also being better than them. That was the point. And so the entire series is that. It's literally a better, more interesting, more in-depth version of pony analysts that's also parodying them. They're losers, they're people stay in their parents' basement, the aesthetic, all that shit. And yeah, you're very much right. Like, it's become the parody of the man that Endless Jest pretends to be, which is sort of like a Carlin-esque figure.
Yeah, and I've known people who are friends with Endless Jest, and they talk about how sweet he is, how empathetic and
he's
fair
so
he is.
nice.
Yeah.
He's so fucking nice, dude. That's the irony of Endless Jest. He's one of the nicest people. He's one of the nicest Discord owners, like people, like YouTubers who have Discords, I've ever fucking seen in my life. He's so nice.
Yeah.
He actively apologizes for not being on the Discord enough. Like, who the fuck does that? Nobody does that.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, one of my friends, Erito, she's known Endless Jest for like 2 years, like as a personal friend. And she's talked to me in the past just about how kind and good of a person he is. I've known someone else who I will not dox who has talked to Endless Jest in depth as well. So like it isn't just something he puts on for his fans. It's something he talks to his friends with, and you can see in his videos too, like the Flaggots video and videos like that, where he's telling you to be moral and kind and a cool person. That's a good message that he's sending through the abstractions of these characters. They're characters we learn from. And like, it's just so weird that people who you'd think would be intellectuals don't fully see what the joke is. They don't fully see what the lesson is. Or even if they do, they just don't care. But the way Digi talks about it makes me think that he didn't understand it. Because, he said, oh, Jesse is this, Jesse is that. And like, in the PCP, we made commenter rules. A lot of the stuff Jesse said on commenter rules was a joke. Like, so it's weird. It's very weird.
It definitely is like, he, Endless Jest makes, oh god, I had a point, sorry. He makes a lot of like, oh shit, okay. I have to leave very, very soon. I have to work on some, then I have to go, and then I got to do a bunch of other shit. But he very much is the kind of like YouTuber that most people want their YouTuber creators to be, which is somebody who's really talented, insanely like avant-garde, but at the same time is also is still like a real person that that real person hasn't gone away, hasn't become diluted through the meme that is content creation on the internet. And I definitely think that that Digi somehow hasn't internalized it. Like, the time Jesse has ever been like a YouTuber is during Plebe and the Weeb, Ava 3.33. That's the only time Jesse has been like really, you could see him actually get genuinely invested in talking about this one thing. But that's hilarious because he blows it out of comedic proportions. Like, he literally, on the first lines he says in the Ava 3.33 video is it ruined my life. So you can very obviously tell he's not taking this seriously while also taking it seriously. There's sort of this. There's a kayfabe. He's a wrestling star. That's who he is. That's his persona. Is a wrestling character. So there's always a sort of if and not. There's a parody, but it's not a parody, but it is. It's layered like that, and that's what makes it good.
And he explains this too. Like, if you watch enough of his videos, he explains this. And I don't know, I feel like Digi literally has autism, and that's the reason why he can't understand the social undercurrent that's connecting everything. Because when I first watched Endless Chess, I knew it was a character. It was one of those things where I knew he was making a statement. The statement was complex, it was layered, it was done through very, strange means at points, but like, if you think about it, if you think about what it means in a social sense, then it makes sense. And like, I feel like Digi just literally has autism. That's his problem.
I mean, you said before when we first met that he suspected Davu has autism.
Yeah, I believe that.
I mean, it's just, I think, the more misanthropic that you get, like, Digi has very clearly had a lot of, and you can't take that away from him as something that he has to, gonna reference Cowboy Bebop in this shit. You're gonna have to carry that weight. Like, that's something that he just has to live with. Is the terrible experiences in his life, and those have manifested themselves into what has sort of, what he's become. Like, if you look at Digi pre-2015, before he got really cynical, then he's a very different person, or at least tonally he's a very different person than he is now. Like, there's a very, very particular shift before BronyCon 2015 where you see him, he just is a different person in his video making, in his personality. It doesn't mean his stuff isn't good after that point, because it's not. He's made some of his best work after that point. But I think that definitely, like, the cynicism of reality has gotten him down. And though, mind you, like, in his recent video about, like, preach success strategies or whatever, where he says, like, he's still an idealist, but he realizes that you have to exist in society, so that's why he made the whole video. So it's not like he's dead, or like the Digi that most people understand, or like most people came into like a few years ago is dead. It's just that he's a different person because of the various experiences recently, and like just the way the internet has evolved.
Well, I
also just dick.
It's one of those things where, yeah, you can be an idealist and talk about how to live in society, but the way that he was talking about it was like you have to, like, he was simultaneously molding his policies around conformity. Like, his policies had changed, even though he was still an idealist. He had changed the way he had, he had this very, like, overwhelming capitalist rhetoric, whereas before he was just like, well, companies should just be more moral people or whatever, which is in itself bad, but the way that he presented it was not in this, like, overjoyed,
It was not this very neoliberal. It wasn't neoliberal. That's a very succinct difference. It's very neoliberal, and that's, what's changed.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I disagree with him on in general. Like, I compared him to Jordan Peterson because it's presenting this kind of rebellion when it is just conformity to the system. You're not rebelling against anything. You're just being slightly different as a middle-class white person, which you already could have been slightly different. This is not a big statement. This isn't a rebellion. The more things that you buy that have, a certain aesthetic to it is not rebellion against a great order. It may be a rebellion against individuals, against the way that certain individuals conduct themselves, but on the grand scale it has no effect. It means nothing. Because you're treating it like it's this big, amazing thing when you're still a middle-class white guy who's preaching capitalism. You're not rebelling against anything. So, they kind of wrap this, this rebellious and, we're gonna stoke the fires, we're gonna be the little guy kind of rhetoric applying it to this extremely conformist ideology. And that's how they get people. You know, they appeal to their emotions rather than their minds.
It definitely is something that I get the impression from, like, hyper new wave progressive types, which I guess I'll call them new wave progressive types because progressivism has had a huge comeback in the last, like, 2 or 3 years. Is that, like, a lot of progressives like to pretend, like Kyle Kalinske, that well, I mean, Kyle less so, I guess, recently, but it's more or less like this idea that it's this rebellion against this massive, the attempt to reform this massive institution that's horrific and horrible, but they're fighters and they'll work despite, like, to disregard the institutions of power to create the better society that they want. Without realizing that it's the institutions of capitalism that's propagating these awful things that you don't like. A lot of social democrats have this idea. Kyle Kalinske had this a lot, this rhetoric a lot, where, like, all Kyle, I think, needs is, like, 2 talks with a bunch of actually well-articulated socialists to, like, really get a change in his opinion, because he's a guy who will change the opinion. Like, he's not somebody who's going to, like, be the same dude forever. He's not the same dude he was, like, 5 months ago. Like, now he's realizing over time the necessity, quote unquote, for a universal basic income, which is a massive shift from, like, a year ago where he didn't believe that at all. So it's sort of like, you know, he's starting to recognize the own contradictions, but he's still pretending like social democracy is a big fucking revolutionary project that also is going to take, like, 2 decades to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and also it's somehow more rational than any other sort of political reformation.
Yeah, the problem with social democracy at its core is just that the capitalists who run over these politicians are still going to exist, and they're still going to control a lot of the things that are going on. You know,
Yeah.
if they try to implement something that's too radical, then in many cases those people are done away with, or bribed, or something under the table happens and they just can't get the things that they want to do done. And then there's some kind of election fraud or something going on with that, and then they get in the people who they want to, you know, be in the Senate or whatever, and then the Senate blocks something that, you know, the social democrat guy wants to get done. And that's just in the realm of social democracy, which is a reform. It's just reforming the system. This isn't even to talk about actual socialists who get elected in the power. They can't do anything because the way that the power structure is built is it's just against them.
Yeah, like, even Ocasio-Cortez, by the way, who on a you having to explain she explained marginalized tax rates in a very well succinct way in, like, 60 seconds. It was fucking great. But the thing is, there's this clarification by these DemSoc social democrats types, or socialists, who I believe Ocasio-Cortez is a socialist. And I believe she genuinely, you know, likes, you know, I think she genuinely wants revolution or change of the hand of the means production over to the workers. But she's stuck in this position where she has to be a politician and not a revolutionary figure. Like, if she was in a party, or if she didn't give a fuck, let's say that, if she was in a position where she did not give a fuck, if she wasn't the Democratic darling, and she just did whatever the fuck she wanted, and said whatever she wanted, and run whatever policy she would like, we wouldn't get where she went on this Colbert interview, and then had to clarify, when accused of being a socialist, that she's a democratic socialist. Which is something that, oh fuck, when I saw that, I literally wanted to punch something, because I'm like, dude, it's the same fucking thing. You're placating to, you're letting the Overton window being moved to the fucking right, and you're letting it happen right there. That's the Overton window being moved right, is socialists in power refusing to take the mantle and actually promote social policy. So fucking stupid. God, I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn identifies as a democratic socialist, but she's by far the most far left of, like, anybody who's close to power
besides probably
right now.
Mélenchon, but he doesn't have the same amount of power as Jeremy. He's just a really influential politician.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, France, I feel like France is either going into a huge far right wave or far left wave. I feel like the right wing.
France.
Wait, did I say France?
Hmm?
Or did I not say France?
Yeah, you said France. I just said that's just how France is.
Yeah.
It's always like that.
Okay, I thought I might have said Germany by accident.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, like it's very odd. The situation going on over there, but I mean, people in Hungary, like they were outright tricked by Viktor Orban because he promised all of these reform policies that would lift people out of poverty and give them pensions and retirement and things like that, and he said no to the big banks. But then what he did right after is he became friends with big banks again after he consolidated power, and he used it. He used that power as a way to essentially make himself a dictator. Like Viktor Orban's government and party, they're basically dictator at this point. Like
Yeah.
And the reason why they did it was because they advertised themselves on socialist policies. I mean, this is what Hitler did. He called the Nazis the National Socialists, and I was watching a speech by Hitler like a month ago, like and he was talking about the Jewish capitalism, this down with the Jewish order, and he mixed in a lot of anti-capitalist rhetoric, but he was very smart in the way that he had directed it towards Jews, so it sounds left-wing. It had a lot of rhetoric that
he framed it in a left-wing context, but he gave it a right-wing nationalist basis, and that was that's a good dog whistling without actually dog whistling.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because the two big parties were the Nationalist Party and the Socialists. And just before, in World War I times, Rosa Luxemburg and all those people, they came in and they were like, hey, I want something else. And the Social Democrats were like, no. And then so they stopped that. But, like, it was one of those things where there was a big left-wing basis in Germany, and a lot of those people were put into concentration camps. Not very anti-capitalist,
Yeah, not very anti. Exactly. Okay, I'm gonna have to go because I have to finish recording this Ava script, and then I have to go eat. So.
I'm sorry for keeping you so long. I didn't think about it. I just my mind when I start thinking about something, I just start going all over the place.
Yeah. I forget. What's the name? Like, what's the actual name? Oh, Cherry. Yeah, fucking Cherry. Apparently has a girlfriend now or something.
Yeah, he's dating this trans Twitch streamer. I'm the only one who actually knows what her Twitch stream is because I'm not gonna say how to find it, but I basically doxed him.
Damn, fucking got him.
But I only sent it to him. I didn't send it to anybody else. I was like, hey, Cherry, I found your girlfriend's Twitch.
Oh my god.
But I really enjoyed doxing as like a thing. But yeah, but yeah, he has a girlfriend. He's had the girlfriend for like a month by this point. But yeah, she seems like a nice trans chick.
Yeah.
We're communists around here. We need to redistribute the trans women. Yes.
That's how we'll cure insults, by having trans people. That's perfect.
Yeah, we'll just turn the incels trans, and the incels who don't want to convert, just give them trans.
Yes. We did it, boys.